Now let's grab and change some elements off of that DOM tree. Over here we have a simple HTML page. I'll go ahead and collapse the sections that we don't need to be bothered with right now. But over here we have an h1 tag with a title of, or with an ID of title. And we also have a button with an ID of change-button that has the text of change title. And then obviously at the end, we have our script included. So this is basically what we see on the browser on the right here. But let's now go into our script.js. And the first thing we need to do is the ability to select an element off of that DOM tree. Now, obviously, if I click on this button, nothing happens right now because we have not built any of this interactivity yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a constant or a variable, and I'll call this our title. This is where I'm going to be capturing a reference to the h1 element off of that DOM tree. So I'll use document.get element by ID, and the ID that we're looking for here is title. So if I save that, now obviously we did nothing with it, but if I went ahead and maybe tried to console log what that title is, we now see that we have the h1 title element, and from here we're able to see all the properties or all the elements that we'll be able to modify using JavaScript, but we'll talk about that later on as well. But let's go ahead and remove this console log, and instead let's try to do something like title.style.color, and let's set that to red. Now as soon as I hit save, you see that the JavaScript is now able to make modifications to elements on the HTML page, including the CSS styles as well. We can also change that, and we would do something like title.text content. Let's change that to this is coming from JavaScript. Hit save. Here we go. We're able to modify the text content of a web page using our JavaScript code. Now let's try to figure out how can we make it that when we click on that change title button, it will actually do something. So let me go ahead and create a new variable or a new constant. We'll do document.get element by ID, and the ID that we're looking for right now is change-button. Next, I'm gonna wrap this into a function, and I'm gonna call it change title text. And what this function will do is basically, if we call it, it'll change the text content to whatever that is. If I hit save, you know that the change is no longer there because we have not called this function. But if I go ahead and do change title text, basically calling the function, it will come back, but we'll do that in a second. Now I'm gonna tap into my button reference, basically the variable that references the button on my HTML page, and we'll add something called add event listener. So over here, we're basically gonna say, whenever the event click happens to that element, we want you to call this function. And now if I hit save and hit this button, you see how the title changes basically by calling this function. So right now we were able to add a button, we were able to add interactivity to it. As soon as we hit that button, we're able to change anything about the page that we want, including text, styles, so on and so forth. We can also change this a little bit and use arrow functions. So if I do const change title text equals this function, we'll have to use the arrow function here. That will also work just fine. If I hit the change title button, it still takes effect. And then obviously I can just extract this bit right here and replace the variable name with that. And this is basically the look or the style of adding event listeners that you'll see most often. So over here I have button, add event listener. On the event of click, we want you to execute this function. This is our first example of adding interactivity to a web page. JavaScript responding to a user action by making changes to the DOM or to the web page. And in the next video, we're going to be talking a lot more in depth about how we can select different elements on our web page using different selectors other than just the ID.